Blackwater Bridge wasn't marked on any map. The road that led to it, if you could call it a road, was little more than a depression in the forest floor, barely carved by ancient tires and swallowed by pine needles. As the car bounced through the last stretch, Eli felt the tires skidding over slick roots and crumbling gravel, the forest pressing in like the closed walls of a mouth. Jessica wrinkled her nose in the passenger seat. "It smells like dead wood and wet carpet." Mason nodded without taking his eyes off the road. "This place always reeks, like something got waterlogged and never dried out." Eli grinned and pulled out his phone. "Good, that's exactly the vibe we want. Let's see what's waiting for us." He flicked open the camera and turned it on himself. His voice came out a little louder than he meant. "All right, people of the internet, time to add another urban legend to the busted pile." The camera's harsh light flickered off his face, pale against the looming dark. Behind him, the trees creaked softly, like they were listening. The bridge emerged in the headlights, a hulking, bowed skeleton of damp timber stretching over a ravine too wide to jump and too deep to survive. The wood was soaked through from centuries of weather, sagging at its center. Ropes of moss hung like nooses from its supports. Eli stepped out of the car, and the air slapped him cold. It was wetter here, like the moisture hung in suspension. The smell hit him immediately: rotted bark, standing water, the sour tang of old mold. It curled in his nostrils. He shook it off and waved at Jessica and Mason, who remained inside. Neither rolled down a window. "Seriously?" he called. "You're not even going to come halfway?" Jessica shook her head. Her breath fogged the glass. Eli scoffed and turned toward the bridge. He didn't believe in any of this. He'd stood in cursed graveyards, played Ouija in hospitals, and snuck into asylum ruins. All of it TikTok bait. Urban legends were just background noise. Folklore built to scare kids into behaving. And yet, he stepped onto the first plank, and his foot sank slightly with a soft squelch. The wood here didn't creak, it moaned, a slow, damp protest. The air got colder, pressing against his clothes like wet fabric. Halfway across the bridge, Eli hesitated. The silence was unnatural. No insects, no birds. Even the wind had dropped away, leaving only the faint wheeze of his breath. He swallowed and forced a smirk for the camera. Standing on Blackwater Bridge. Still no ghosts. Still. Then he froze. Something had shifted. Not behind him, not around him, but in him. A sensation, sudden and intimate, like the air had changed pressure inside his skull. Then came the voice. Not from the trees, not from a phone. From the silence itself. 7 nights, watch the water. It was a whisper that felt old, not just in age, but in origin. Dry and wet at the same time, like leaves soaking in rot. It sounded layered, as if many mouths were whispering together, and none of them had ever been human. Eli blinked, heart thudding against his ribs. For a second, he considered running. Then instinct, pride, and adrenaline surged together and shoved the fear down. He turned, calling back over his shoulder, "Creepy!" "Seriously, you guys went all out." No answer. He walked quickly back across the bridge, camera forgotten in his pocket. The planks sagged beneath his feet, and every breath seemed more complicated than the last. As he reached the gravel again, the headlights came into view. Jessica sat motionless in the passenger seat. Mason's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. Eli got into the back seat and slammed the door. "What was that?" Jessica asked, her voice tight. "You tell me," Eli said. "That was a solid whisper job." "We didn't say anything," Mason murmured. "We couldn't hear you from here." Eli looked at them. Neither of them smiled. Behind them, from somewhere deep in the bridge's wooden frame, came a long, wet groan, like something had just shifted its weight, and was settling in to wait. The ride home was silent, save for the low hum of the car engine and the occasional crunch of gravel under the tires. Eli sat hunched in the back seat, hoodie damp from the air near the bridge, his phone idle in his lap. He replayed the whisper over and over in his mind. It hadn't come from any direction. It had arrived inside his skull, like a breath drawn inward. Jessica broke the silence once. "What did you hear?" He didn't answer. Back home, Eli stepped inside and immediately recoiled at the scent. The sour, earthy rot of the bridge had followed him, clinging to the fibers of his clothes. The house, usually warm and safe, now felt damp, as if moisture had seeped in behind the walls. He tossed his hoodie onto the desk chair and dropped into bed without turning on the lights. The green blink of the router was the only movement. He stared at the ceiling. His muscles tensed at the slightest creak of the house settling. Every sound stretched, echoing unnaturally in the dark. Then came the tapping. Software rhythmic, wet, tap, tap, tap. Eli sat up, throat tight. The sound came from beneath his bed. He leaned over, thumb flicking on his phone's flashlight. The beam hit the floorboards and shimmered. A puddle had formed under his bed. He squinted, leaning closer. The water was obvious, eerily still. No source above, no split glass or pipe leak. The puddle was spreading, darkening the wood. He crouched beside it. It smelled like pond water, stale and organic. The light danced on the surface, and for a moment he thought he saw something beneath it, like a ripple beginning before anything moved, like a shape deciding whether to rise. Eli snapped backwards. His breath hitched. Then, crunch. He turned to the window. Curtains drawn. He stood, hands clammy, and pulled one edge aside. Beyond the backyard, just past the edge of the clearing, stood a figure. Still, upright, perfectly motionless. No light struck it directly, but its outline was distinct. Long arms, tilted head, not watching, waiting. Eli's chest constricted. He blinked. The figure was gone. He backed away from the window, sat in his desk chair, and remained there until pale light began to creep across the walls. By dawn, the puddle had vanished. No sign it had ever been there, except for the salt stains left on his socks. Eli didn't mention the puddle to anyone. He tried to record a video that morning, a casual vlog explaining what had happened on the bridge, but the words wouldn't come. He deleted it without posting. At school, he felt hyper-aware. Every movement too fast, every voice too loud. He couldn't stop sweating. When he reached his locker, his hand slipped on the handle. Wet. He blinked and tried again. Water dripped down the painted metal. He opened it. Inside, dry. No spill. No damp books. He stared, waiting for something to shift. Nothing did. The air inside the locker was strangely warm, humid. He wiped his palm on his jeans and closed the door, trying not to look over his shoulder. But he felt it, a tug just beneath awareness, like eyes pressed between the cracks in the walls. At home that evening, he took a long, too hot shower. He watched the steam fog the mirror until it became opaque. His face is gone. Then he saw it. The fogged glass had been marked, not by his hand. A symbol, a circle, split by 3 uneven vertical lines. The strokes weren't finger width. They were narrower, like claws or nails. His gut turned. He stared at the mirror, refusing to blink, then grabbed his phone and took a photo. When he checked it, the mirror was clear. No fog, no symbol. That night, he turned his closet door away from his bed. It had begun creaking open during the night, just an inch. Always the same gap. Always at 3 a.m. He watched it now, door shut. No wind, no movement. A whisper drifted up from the floor vent beneath his desk. At first, it sounded like a trick of the air. But then it sharpened, breathy, foreign, ancient. He couldn't understand it. He understood enough. He didn't sleep. By the third night, Eli no longer questioned the signs. He began to search. Online forums, subreddits about local legends, archive.org snapshots of vanished message boards. He found a blog post, dated 2014. Black background, white courier text. No author. The bridge is only where it begins, not where it lives. Don't speak to it. That's how it learns you. Don't sleep above water. Don't look into it when it moves. It remembers your voice. It remembers you. He read the post 5 times. At 1:12 a.m., the window tapped. He turned slowly, pulled the curtain back. The figure stood just inches beyond the glass, Closer now. Arm length. His height. Its hand rose. Flesh blackened. Wet. The fingers were long and bent, as though submerged too long. It pressed its palm to the glass. Water streaked down. Then it dragged one nail down slowly, leaving a vertical trail. He didn't scream. He stepped backwards until his spine met the opposite wall. He blinked. The window was empty. That night, in his dream, the bridge was endless. He walked forever, feet soaked from the damp planks, the mist curling around his legs. Below him, rooftops, chimney stacks, sunken buildings beneath still black water. And through the mist ahead, something waited, its head tilted like it was listening, like it recognized him. Eli begged to stay with Mason. He didn't say why. Mason didn't ask. They set up blankets in the basement. Jessica joined, with an unspoken agreement. No one sleeps alone. The light stayed on. At 2:50 a.m., Jessica fell asleep mid-scroll. Mason followed soon after. Eli lay staring at the ceiling, eyes burning. Drip, drip, drip. He sat up, walked to the furnace corner. There, on the concrete, a puddle. It hadn't been there before. The shape wasn't random. It curved into a circle, crossed by jagged vertical lines. He turned. Jessica and Mason were gone. The sleeping bags lay empty. The light flickered. He didn't scream. Eli woke in his bed, clothes soaked, heart slamming. The ceiling pulsed. Symbols etched into the plaster. From the bathroom came a voice. His voice. "Come and see." He opened the door. The sink drain stared back, black, breathing. He shut the door, whispered, "Please." Stop. The closet behind him creaked. "Too late," it whispered. The night bled in slowly. Eli sat at the center of his room like it wasn't his anymore. The ceiling throbbed with condensation. The walls had changed. Every surface was coated in symbols now, jagged runes pulsing faintly blue, like veins in diseased skin. They moved when he wasn't looking. Or maybe he couldn't keep track anymore. His phone was dead, had been for hours. The screen showed a single, faint line, like a heartbeat. Then it went black. He heard his parents downstairs, laughter, then arguing, then silence, then something that sounded like his mother was calling his name. But her voice was backwards. Water wept from the electrical sockets. Beads formed along the ceiling, hanging like tears before falling, soundless, into the carpet. The bulb in the desk lamp glowed underwater blue, even though it wasn't plugged in. He stood and faced the mirror. His reflection didn't move. Then it blinked. Eli didn't. The reflection's mouth opened first, wider than it should. The jaw unhinged, like it had no bones to stop it. Black water poured out, not like a leak, but like a flood. Too much. It coated the inside of the glass, and yet nothing spilt. Then Eli felt it in his throat. His lips parted on their own. Water filled his mouth. Thick, cold, endless. He gagged but didn't fall. His body didn't shake. It simply stiffened, as if caught mid-thought. His fingers twitched. His eyes rolled. The voice came through him, not from him. 7 nights. Watch the water. The walls pulsed with it. Symbols crawled, burned. The air was hot now, boiling, but he felt cold, drenched from within. Eli turned, not under his control, and looked at the closet. The door swung open on its own. Inside stood he, but older, rotting, mouth split and leaking. His doppelganger stepped out, barefoot, soaked, smiling with no eyes. Eli tried to scream. The water filled his lungs. He collapsed, twitching, then went still. His mouth opened once more, and water poured out onto the dry floor. No source, no explanation. His body didn't move again. The room stayed dry. But he had drowned, and something else stood in his place, smiling. The next morning, the police called it an unexplained death. No signs of trauma, no water damage. Just Eli, still and pale, found lying face down in bed, as if he'd fallen asleep and slipped beneath an invisible tide. Lungs full, room dry. Jessica didn't attend the funeral. Mason didn't either. They sat in silence at the edge of the forest that same night, the air thick with damp pine and soil. The woods surrounding Blackwater Bridge had grown darker, denser since that night. "He said it was a dare," Jessica whispered, legs tucked to her chest. "Like everything else. Just another post." Mason didn't reply. They followed the gravel path, flashlights low. Neither said they were returning to the bridge. But they both knew. When they emerged into the clearing, Jessica stopped first. Mason nearly walked into her. The bridge was different. Where once it had spanned the ravine, it now stopped halfway across, as if its far half had never been built at all. Not broken and not collapsed. Just gone. The planks ended abruptly over the chasm, smooth as if sanded. The beams were rotted to the core, slick with moss, but the edge was precise, clean. "This wasn't like this before," Mason said, voice low. Jessica stepped forward, boots crunching soft earth. She approached the edge slowly, feeling the chill of the air grow sharper with every step. The light from her phone caught the moisture on the wood, reflecting in dim veins of silver. She stopped at the brink and looked down. Far below, the water was perfectly still. Not black, but deep blue, almost glassy. Beneath the surface, just visible in the fading dusk light, were shapes: stone, angles, a slanted roof, a tower spire. The window frames are long buried, the remains of the old drowned village. She squinted. Something moved between the buildings, slow, deliberate. Her breath caught. A hand broke the surface, just for a moment, pale, thin, human-shaped, but too long. Then a voice rose from below, the words so faint they seemed like a memory. "7 nights. Watch the water." Mason stumbled back. "We should go. Jess, we need to go." Jessica didn't move. The water rippled again. A shape drifted just below the surface, face up, arms outstretched. It looked like Eli, but his eyes were open and watching. The end.